When most people think of the Mahabharata, they picture a scene exactly like this: dense armies, war chariots, and the massive, apocalyptic battlefield of Kurukshetra. But the true origin of this epic involves zero weapons. It begins with an ironclad romantic pact, and it centers on a deeply disturbing event. A powerful king stands completely frozen, watching silently as his own newborn baby is deliberately drowned in a river. Why a ruler of an empire would stand by and allow this to happen is the central mystery we need to solve, because his inexplicable silence on this riverbank is the hidden gear that will eventually grind millions of soldiers into dust. To understand the mechanics of that silence, look at this 19th century photograph of the Ganges River. Long before the war, King Shantanu of Hastinapur arrived at banks very much like these. According to the texts, he encountered a woman of impossible beauty, the physical manifestation of the river goddess Ganga. Shantanu became immediately obsessed and pleaded for her hand in marriage. She agreed, but on one absolute, non-negotiable condition: the king could never question her actions. No matter how irrational or cruel her behavior seemed, he had to remain completely silent. The penalty clause of this contract left no room for error. The exact moment he asked a single question, she would abandon him permanently. This strict condition led to a horrific pattern. Over the years, Ganga gave birth to 7 sons, but as soon as each node on the royal timeline appeared, she took the newborn to the river and drowned him. Shantanu's silence reflected a rigid adherence to this psychological contract. He chose a toxic devotion to his wife over the survival of his heirs, gambling his empire's future on the terms of a single promise. Every human has a breaking point, and for Shantanu, it arrived with the birth of their 8th child. The psychological toll of the murders finally outweighed the terms of his marriage. As Ganga prepared to throw the 8th infant into the water, Shantanu physically intercepted her. He grabbed her wrist, demanded an explanation, and finally broke his vow of silence. By speaking up, he successfully saved the child's life. But in doing so, he immediately triggered the penalty clause of their marriage condition. Ganga proved the absolute rigidity of her vow. She handed the infant over to the king and departed, ending their relationship in an instant. Shantanu chose his duty as a father over his vow as a lover. He lost his queen, but he secured an heir, saving the single life that would go on to be the most consequential figure in Indian history. That 8th saved child was Bhishma. He grows up to become the towering patriarch of the Hastinapur court. His exceptionally long life, combined with a severe vow he takes later on, creates a massive bottleneck for the royal succession. You can see exactly how this functions on the family tree. Shantanu is at the top, with Bhishma anchored in the center. Because Bhishma is fixed in place, the subsequent generations, the Pandavas and the Kauravas, are forced into a tangled, overlapping web of disputed claims to the throne. If you remove Bhishma from this equation, if Ganga had drowned him like the previous 7, the entire architecture of this dynastic crisis collapses. The core dispute ceases to exist. Which brings us back to this stone relief of Kurukshetra. Knowing the origin, we can view this conflict differently. All these troops and the sheer scale of destruction they caused stem directly from one man's prolonged presence in the royal lineage. The bloodiest war in ancient mythology grew from a father's choice at the riverbank. This continental catastrophe began when one man broke a vow of silence to save his son, showing how a single fractured promise can collapse an entire dynasty.